Hey, what's up, guys? Will Bowman here with People Project Media. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about 6 benefits that having a spiritual practice can bring to your creativity. So I am a working creative, if you haven't watched more of my videos, and in this series I try to help other working creatives to unleash their creativity and the creativity of their teams if they are someone who's working over other creatives. And in the past 5 years that I've been doing this, one of the best tools for being able to manage my creative self and also be able to tap into my creativity when I'm working with difficult projects that I've had has been my spiritual practice. And so in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my own spiritual practice, and then also how some benefits that having your own spiritual practice could also could help you and also other creatives who are working with you, under you, above you, or generally around you. So for me, my own spiritual practice, I practice inside of the Christian tradition, and the particular practice that I use, in addition to sort of your general going to church and singing worship songs and all that, is I practice a meditative technique called centering prayer. And centering prayer is a method for essentially showing up and bringing God into every moment and every thought and emotion and internal experience that you're having. And then through that process, finding stillness, or at least going in and out of stillness and sort of allowing those things to find some peace. And that's a very, very big oversimplification. So please do not just take it as that is all that it is. It is so much more than that. It is something, I mean, if I had not had this practice, I would not have survived the last 5 years as a working creative. It's that simple. I would have burned out or flamed out or just burned too many bridges in the past, failed too many projects to be able to continue. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the practice at the end of this video, but right now I want to jump right into the 6 benefits that having this 6 of the benefits that having this practice has given to me in my own last 5 years of being working creative. So the first one is that it can help you to deal with fear and anxiety. I'm a very fearful person. At least I experience fear and anxiety quite often, particularly related to my business and my creativity. For whatever trick of genetics or culture, that's just my go-to emotion is fear. And when I'm experiencing fear powerfully, this technique is one of the first places that I'll go if it becomes too powerful, or if it's getting in the way cripplingly. I start my day every day with it because sometimes waking up is one of the worst times. And that really helps me in a couple of ways because, one, my fear is the hyperactive kind. It makes me want to do and go faster and push through things quicker and get more done, rather than being the kind of fear that generally wants you to go into your room and not do anything. Sometimes it gets there, but most of the time it's the kind that just makes me want to go hard, go fast, and just get things done quickly. My spiritual practice helps me center and allow some of that fear to kind of chillax and just relax a little bit so that I can approach my day in a more centered and rhythmic way so that I'm doing the right things at the right pacing and doing them well for the benefit of both me and my clients. So that's a really helpful, that I would say is probably one of, if not the biggest help that centering prayer has been to me in my own creative journey, is being able to manage my own fear and anxiety when it comes to projects and otherwise. So number 2, it can also be a channel for your own unique and inspired ideas as a creative. There have been multiple times in my own creative journey where I've been stuck on a project, or I just didn't see the way forward. And sometimes I'll just take 10 or 15 minutes and I'll go and I'll sit and I'll do my practice. And sometimes in that time, the answer will come to me. I'll see it, or wherever. Like it'll just rise up from that place, that deep chaotic creativity, and I'll see it. And sure enough, it'll go into the project, and that will be the thing that moves the project forward. A lot of times when we get stuck on a project, again, that fear or that shame or whatever, those sort of really powerful, maybe anger emotions come up, and they really they hinder us from getting into that deep place of knowingness and creativity that is where the real answers come from. Or they also sometimes hinder us from going out and asking people, right? That's another situation. Like if I'm stuck on a creative project, I'll do my centering prayer, and sometimes I'll get the feeling of ask this person, go consult this person. And sure enough, I'll go and I'll talk to them, and that their input will help move the project forward. So we become less resourced when we get into fear and anxiety and overwhelm or anger, powerful emotions. Not that these things are bad, they just tend to make us less resourced. So a spiritual practice can help you to manage them and to be able to help you find the answers and get the resources and solve the creative problems that you're having with your projects. So number 3, it helps you narrow down which projects to really focus on. This is something I really struggle with as a creative, is I want to focus on everything. I seem to have difficulty where all projects seem to have the exact same importance in front of me. Some people have told me that this is an ADHD thing. I am not diagnosed ADHD, but this is something that I experience quite often, which is, like I said, all projects seem to have the same importance and have a very difficult time prioritizing. So over the years, I have learned creative coping mechanisms for prioritizing projects. And one of them is if I'm everything's overwhelming in my brain and I don't know where to focus or move next, I'll go sit. Sometimes I'll even just lay down on the couch and just kind of sit with my emotions. But a lot of times I'll do the practice. And what'll happen is certain projects will rise to the surface and I'll know which ones to focus on. So that's really helpful, and I'll be honest, and as a creative producer, a lot of times it is very difficult to prioritize. Prioritization is huge in our world. There's a million projects coming at us, and we have to know which ones to prioritize on. So spiritual practices can really help us to narrow in and focus on the right ones that we know are the ones we need to be focusing on in that moment. Number 4, I've talked about this a little bit already, but it can help you manage your emotions. By nature, creatives tend to have very heightened emotions, powerful emotions, which is good. That is a good thing. We need our emotions to be able to do the work that we do because it allows us to, connect with the people who our clients are trying to reach. We need our emotions. That's why we got into this business, because our emotions are precious to us, and they should be. However, managing them, both in our work as creatives and also in the rest of our lives as just regular human beings, can sometimes be very difficult, and I know this is the case with me. I have very powerful emotions. I'm an Enneagram 4, which is one that has very, very powerful emotions. They tend to be creatives, as I am. And my centering prayer practice really helps me to manage them. When I'm experiencing powerful emotions, oftentimes I'll go and I'll sit with them. I'll realize this is just something I need to sit with and be with in this moment for a little while and see what's happening. And sometimes I don't even figure out what's happening, but just in the act of being with that emotion for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, the emotion will kind of settle, and I'll be able to move forward past it into what I need to do next, right? Because I find as a creative, my emotions are important, but I don't create really good things when they're ruling the show. When they rule the show, the things that I create they're not my best work. But when I control them, and when they are essentially working with me and I'm working with them, and we're kind of in tandem, and they're a part of me rather than ruling me or guiding me or leading the way, that's when they're at the most use. And centering prayer helps me to be able to sort of when one of them is just I want to control the show here, it says, okay, let's go sit with that for a little while. let that calm down, and then you can kind of return to the place where you're a part of the pantheon of emotions that is my emotional essence, right? So, number 5, and I mentioned this a little bit, it helps you to manage the rest of your life outside of your art or your creativity or your work. Like I already mentioned, as artists, we're also human beings. We have regular lives. We go to the store. We go on runs. We eat our food. We put our pants on 2 legs at a time, just like the rest of you, right? We live regular human lives, and sometimes those are not easy, right? In certain situations, they're not easy. And having a spiritual practice can help your creativity because it helps you to manage those parts of your life, which in turn affect your creativity for the better. I know that when my life is in shambles outside of my creative world, I don't create as well as when there is order and rhythm and centeredness in those areas, right? Because so much more of my emotional energy is able to be present, and I'm able to be focused in on the thing that I need to do in my work. Having a spiritual practice can really help you to be able to manage those parts of yourself, which seemingly have nothing to do with your creativity, but in reality, as every single creative in the planet knows, they have everything to do with your creativity. So having that spiritual practice can help you manage them. And number 6, the final one, it can give you a why for your creativity. I don't know if I'm the only creative that struggles with this, but sometimes I wonder why I'm doing what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm like, why am I creating all of these things? Why am I putting these things out into the world? Why am I sometimes staying up late or getting up early or really like investing myself in these projects that maybe are going to be here and gone in a year, right? The great question of impermanence that so many of the great world's traditions wrestle with and address. And having that spiritual practice can really put those things in perspective. And it can also give you some motivation of like, why am I showing up? What's my purpose? Who am I serving? Why is it important to be serving in general? Where is my heart? What is, what am I doing this for, right? These are questions that most creatives do ask, and having a spiritual practice can help you to address them, work with them. Sometimes on the hard days, I'll go and I'll sit with this question, and maybe the big cosmic why isn't really what I'm needing. I'm just needing the why of like in that particular moment. Why am I getting up today to go to work? Who am I serving today? Is it one of my creatives that I'm working with, my contractors, or is it a client who really needs me in this moment, or is it me? Am I growing? I mean, I can't count the amount of things that I've realized over the last 4 years have really been about me growing into the person who I feel like God is trying to make me into, and the creative who can do the things that I'm put here to do. And if I hadn't been here for the last 4 years, I'll be honest, I would not have been able to do that. And I'm speaking a little bit from like my own, I'm preaching my own sermon here a little bit to myself, because I'll be honest, this is a question I've been wrestling with a lot recently. And a lot of times it is that spiritual practice that helps me to remind myself this isn't just about the bank account. This isn't just about the products that you put out, the amount of things, the sales that your things make. You yourself are a project. You yourself are the thing which is being worked on. And wherever that bank account is and wherever that project finishes, at the end of the day, if you're growing in love and if you're growing in competence, it's not wasted. So those are my 6 reasons that 6 benefits that having a spiritual practice can bring to your creativity. 1, it helps you deal with your fear and anxiety. 2, it's a channel for unique or inspired ideas. 3, it helps you to narrow down which projects to focus on. And 4, it helps you to manage your emotions. 5, it helps you manage the rest of your life. And 6, it gives you a why, or it can give you a why for your creativity. So before I jump off, I'm going to talk a little bit about my particular practice, centering prayer. If you're a part of the Christian tradition and you're looking for a entry point into sort of the mystical side of Christianity, which is very broadly defined, looking for a direct experience of God through practice, I would highly encourage you to look into centering prayer. It's a Christ-based meditative practice, which that was very important for me when I was getting into it, that can really help you to be able, I mean, the point of it isn't all of these things, right? None of these is the point of the practice. The point of the practice is the practice in a lot of ways, but by doing the practice, it does give you a lot of benefits, and it can be really helpful in many different areas of your life, both creative and not creative. So I'm going to show you a quick little clip from my most recent film, The Witness, about centering prayer, that gives you just an outline of what it is and what happens during that process. And then after that, I'm going to give you some resources that you can use to go and learn more, and maybe, hopefully, integrate it into your own creative life if it's something that you would find valuable.
I got the strong intuition to begin the weekly centering prayer group. And in centering prayer, when I was trained, there were 4 consents, and the consents were: I consent to God's love, I consent to God's presence, I consent to God's will, I consent to God's action and activity in my life. And then we say our name for God, whatever that name is for each individual. And then what happens is that you go into silence. And then 1/10 of a second later, I may be thinking about my kids in the playground and wondering what they're doing. And then I just gently say my word for God. And I focus back on God. And as I focus back on God, I'm present in my body, sitting in my consent. We go into a place of grace. And in that place of grace, we forget about ourselves. And something happens there that changes us. And then when we come out of that state and come back into sitting in the chair, we're changed.
That's just a basic sort of rundown of what happens in the process of centering prayer. That film is called The Witness. It's about a good friend of mine from a small town in Eastern Oregon named David Ebel. And he was the person who taught me centering prayer. He leads a group there. I'm going to post the link to the film in the description below so you can watch it there. I'm also going to post a link to the organization which is dedicated to spreading centering prayer, disseminating centering prayer around, contemplative outreach. Some excellent books that I will also post in there by the late and great Father Thomas Keating. Incredible books about centering prayer, about the heart of Christianity. He was a monk who came up with, or at least was one of the people who came up with the concept of centering prayer and the practice of centering prayer. So great books about the practice there. And if you are not in the Christian tradition, I am firmly a Christian. However, I realize that is not the only tradition that exists out there. I would encourage you to look into your own tradition and find some sort of a spiritual practice that can help you in your own creative pursuits, like I have found in mine. So, all right, if you like this video, be sure to comment. Tell me a little bit about your own spiritual practice. How has that influenced your creativity? I'd love to be able to know that. I'd also love it if you would tell me some of the benefits that you found I would love to be able to sort of like focus on that and maybe talk about that in a future video. Also, speaking of future videos, if you have any subjects that you think would be interested related to creativity, getting more out of your creativity, unleashing your creativity, working with creative teams, these are all sort of the subjects that this series is dedicated to. So please post in the comments and let me know, and they may make them into a future video. So, all right, thanks guys. We'll see you next time. Check you later.